Hey everybody, it's Dominic Rukia from the Break It Down Show. Today's guest is Coach John Mosley, featured on season 1 of the Netflix Last Chance U. John's basketball program at East LA College focuses on highly talented but challenged basketball players. Often, these players have already lost a chance at the Division 1 program with a full scholarship, but through love, faith, and family, Coach Mosley manages to get his athletes back on the track, focused on believing in themselves and each other. Sounds like the best coach ever. You already know what to do. Write for the Brave. Go to savethebrave.org. You can donate some money in it. We fight together PTSD. If you want to support our show, go to the PayPal link, put a little money in it, and all the money goes straight back to the show. Check out our website, it's breakitdownshow.com. You can find our merch, or you can simply subscribe. Find us on YouTube. That's the best place to listen right now, and you can also watch us there. So enough of me. Here comes Coach John Mosley.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick
This
Marotta.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Coach John Mosley, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Can I call you John or Coach? What are you more comfortable with?
Hey, whatever, man. I'm good. Whatever you want to call me.
We're going to stick with John. You are not the first John Mosley we've had on the show. We've also had a friend of mine, John Mosley, who's gold medal winner from '98, Nagano.
Wow.
So champions on the show a lot. I wanted to introduce you to a guy named X-Rated. His name is Honore Vachon, and he was a young kid coming up in Sacramento and wound up getting wrapped up in the gangs because that's part of Sacramento he lived in, and then went into someone's house one night to go harm someone and ended up killing the mom, and put himself in a situation where, he had to go do 25 plus years in jail. And when I talked to him about this, I did a whole series of shows on called the Prison Chronicles on guys like him who go through, they go through a murder conviction, go through prison and then get out. But he was rapping the entire time, making money. So he had a very unique situation. But one of the things he talked about, and for those who are, I'm kind of just jumping in here, Coach Mosley coaches East LA's community college basketball team, the Huskies, and it is the hot show right now on Netflix. It's part of this Last Chance U series that you've seen in other places. This is the Netflix original version of it, and it's fantastic. And I love this story. Back to Honore. So he ends up killing someone, goes to prison, and he talks about having the life leached out of him by his community. He's got this thing called this dark enemy that sits on your shoulder that you can't see until you remove it. And so you do things that are detrimental to your own future, to your own success. And he said, and I asked him, because he's got this rapping skill. He's like, yeah, people told me you've got skill in this. You should stick with it. But he's like, it takes 3 things for a guy like me to not go down the path I went. I need an exceptional mentor. I need an exceptional situation. I have to be exceptional. If those 3 things don't combine, there's no reliable path out of where I was going.
Yeah. You know what? Those are awesome points. And you could tell him I'm gonna steal those as well. So he may see those somewhere, but yeah, you got to have people in these in some of these young men's lives that are having some things that are going on. So there's things that are going on, and a lot of times we write them off because of some of the because of some of the responses. And so the biggest thing is trying to teach these young men how to respond, man. Because he runs and he storms off, and you guys see that when you watch the show, you see how the young men respond. The biggest thing to me is I know who they are. I say basketball reveals because I know who they are when I see them, when we're competing, when they show up every day, and I know where their heart is. But you know what? Maybe they haven't been taught how to respond to a little bit of adversity. And, there's things that are going on in their lives, and the frustration. Of course, they don't want to storm. They want to do right by basketball. So when they respond on the basketball court, that's their love, their first love. When they respond on the basketball court in a negative way, I know there's something going on because this is their safe place. And if they're responding, they're crying out. They're crying out. They're asking, like, I need help. I know you love me as a basketball player, but I need help. And that's how I see it. And, and it's, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but the way I see it is to have compassion and love on them and say, you know what, I want to change that because you got this gift. You got this diamond inside of you. Like the young man you shared, the rapper, he's got this diamond inside of him. You got this gift. They have these gifts. And not only just basketball, but I can see leadership skills in these guys. I can see passion and drive. But then something goes wrong, like a bad officiating call, and they just flip out because the place that they thought was safe is also being corrupted. There's some little bit of corruption or is being tainted. And so they just blow up. And I'm saying, no. Everywhere you go in life, there's going to be some adversity. So even though you think basketball is a safe place, there's going to be adversity here as well. And when you move on in life, there's going to be adversity. Let's change these responses. And so that's where my heart is. And not just this level, but every level, there's coaches doing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is the coaching part of that, right? Like you can show them how to work on their drop step or how to box out or all these things. But I mean, that's a level of coaching. That next level is getting them to believe in themselves, to push them. I mean, I'm a military guy, right? And I've been to a lot of combat zones and I was a spy. So I would talk to people in town and you'll recognize this. These are people in combat zones, they're military age males. And I would say, if I gave you a bag of money, where would you go? What would your dream be? And they literally, John, this is terrifying. They would say, I don't have a dream. That's not reality. I'm just trying to get to the next day. Nobody cares about me. I have no future.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. It's this, the message that it's the sense that I get from all these young men. They feel hopeless. And when they walk through the doors, they have this sense of hopelessness. And I just feel compelled. That's what it is. I'm in the competition in me. Okay. The competitor in me, the underdog is saying, nope, look, I know how you're feeling. I know what you're going through. We're going to show the world. We're going to show everybody. We're going to turn this around. All the people that have given up on you and then may have given up on you because of the same response that you gave me to criticism or adversity. Well, you know what? Maybe 2 or 3 people have given up on you. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm going to win you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to win you. I'm going to win you over in that sense. If I'm a competitor, if it's about me, okay, here's what it is if it's about me. And I tell people all the time, I say, I hope that I'm not selfish, but if there's a inkling of selfishness, is because I want to see you successful. And I want you to move on. I want to watch you play on television and say, hey, look what we've done for these young men. If I have any type of selfishness, my drive is to make sure that they're at the next level. And you're never going to say, I failed because of Coach Mosley, or we failed because I went to school there. The goal is to try to make sure these guys, we won't have that opportunity. If you fail, it's because you walked out of the door and you quit. That's the only reason why you fail. That's the mission. Not to say that we're 100% proof or, that things can't happen or circumstances can't happen, but that's the mindset. And myself and my coaching staff, none of these guys are going to fail. We can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. I can't let one guy down. When I helped 100 guys, I don't want to let one guy down. And so that's kind of the mindset that I take.
We've had a guy named Devone Bogan on. I don't know if you know Devone. He's from Richmond. He went in and said, give me the 25 worst people you can find. These young Black men, Hispanic men that are committing all this violent crime. And I'm just going to go in and approach him kind of like you do. That's why I wanted to bring him up. And he said, the biggest problem, it's hard work. It's hard work to go out and work with these guys because the government doesn't trust you, even though you're a government employee. The street doesn't trust you, even though you got guys who are street guys. They don't. It takes a long time and a lot of work. And when he's like, what we give them are uncles. And it's like, yeah, man, you need anger management class. We agree with you. You identified this. We agree with you. And you missed your appointment. But guess what's going to happen? I got a new appointment for next Tuesday. I'm going to be standing.
There you go.
I cannot fail you. It won't happen. But how do you build that trust, man? It's easy to say build trust, but how do you actually do it with these guys, especially when that lesson doesn't set in the first time? Because look, we're dudes. We're dumb.
Yeah.
We got to learn the same version of the lesson. It only gets harder each time, and we still take forever sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like you said there, I already know when they walk through the door that they're going to make mistakes. Like, why would I expect them to be perfect? I already know as soon as they walk through the door, it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times before they finally get it. Okay. So I come with that already. But like you said, giving them, making sure that they have that access and having that compassion to say, hey, I'm gonna make sure that you don't fail. The way you do that is the relationship. You have to know what's really going on so that you know how to approach them. The viewers, if we watch Last Chance U, don't really know what Joe is going through those moments. So they're like, how is Joe responding? How do we let Joe respond that way? You really don't know what happened before he got to the game that night. I know almost every moment inch of what these young men, and they only highlighted a few guys, but we're talking about 15 guys. So what happens is when and then you help them. Deshaun went through the passing of his mom. It wasn't just, okay, Deshaun, let me give you a hug. I'm here for you. Let me pray for you. It was really digging in to the business aspect of how he needed to get. I helped him through that. I helped him handle his mom's, all those different things that was put on him, all of that financial business. I gave him direction. And so the trust that you get there, because I say, look, man, I need to help you through this so that you can be successful. The same thing with Joseph Hampton. He had some legal issues, and immediately, without him getting one rebound for me, I helped him. And there was the trust that was established there. So you got to give so that they can trust you before you can get back. Usually what happens, and it is kind of frustrating, and I'm going to vent here a little bit because we work with tons of programs that give access, correct? So they give a lot of access. They give these free things, these free services. But what do? They sit back and say, you need help, you come to us. You need help. Come on, here, come to us. If you need help, no. You go to them and you grab them. You have to grab them and learn them, because guess what? Especially as men, I don't need no help. I can be at the bottom of the gutter, on life support, and I'm still going to say, I don't need your help, But you have to grab them, and you got to tear down and break and chip away and let them know, look, I don't care if you say you don't need my help, I'm helping you. And that's the issue. I see it all the time. Everybody invites me in. They say, hey, Mosley, come speak or help us put together this group for these minorities or these young men, or come to this or that. And then we have this sense like, hey, you guys, we're just sitting back and we're expecting the people that need help to come to us. Well, yeah, we have all these resources. We got all this free stuff for them. We got access to tutors. We have housing vouchers. We have this, we have that. Yeah, they should come. They should see this and run to us. No, that's a self-righteous attitude. We need to be like, dude, they don't know how to. If they knew that, they would, like me. I know how to go get help, man. Hey, let me send an email. Let me do this. Let me do that. I've been taught how to do that. They're not asking for help. They're not asking for a tutor. They'll fail before they ask for a tutor. And I'm like, no. Let me see your grade check. They're ashamed of giving me their grade check, right? So that grade check comes, and I force them to give me the grade check. They're ashamed of it because they don't want help, because they know they're struggling. But no, give me the grade check or you're running. Once I get the grade check and I see they're struggling, I'm not here to condemn you. I just need to know where you're at so that you don't fail. A lot of times they are condemned when they turn the grade check in. Oh, this sucks. What the heck? No. Let me see the grade check so that we know how to approach and attack that. And I think in terms of, if we're going to help young men, if we're going to help people in general, whatever, my group is young men, young minority men. I don't care what group you're out to help, but if you're going to help any type of group, you can't sit back and say, look at what we got for you, come and get it. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to pursue those who need it, because a lot of times they're embarrassed that they need help or that they should get help. And you got to go get them, man. You got to have compassion and go get them. And then when you go get them, you got to realize that they're going to make mistakes, and you got to teach them. You can't say, well, you made mistakes, now you don't get this help,
Yeah, man, I'm glad you're saying this stuff. And there's great examples throughout the show of this. And again, you guys, it's called Last Chance U, and it's the basketball season, and it's a Netflix exclusive. Definitely go check it out. You get to see Joe in this case, and Joe is probably the most troubled guy in terms of like the editing and the stories we see. And he goes in towards the end of the series, and he's struggling. He doesn't have a passing grade in English, and he comes off and he's like, this is screwed up. And then the counselor kind of looks at him and he's like, it's on me. It's on me. And you see he's like, I didn't turn something in. I was a couple days late, but that wasn't the Joe that showed up the first day. And then shortly after that, you see Joe really stepping up as a leader and having this positive attitude. So It definitely goes there. Or someone like KJ who struggles to learn and doesn't realize that, like, hey, we've gotten way better at this now. Like, we know how to deal with a whole variety of struggles to learn categories. This is not even a problem anymore. It's just work. And that kid knows how to work. It's just taking away the shame, because his whole life he struggled with this.
Yes.
And he's now dealing, and these guys are still babies, as you know.
Yes.
But like, hey, you've been hiding this for 12 years, 15 years. Never mind all that. Let's get to work.
Yes. We're not here to condemn you. Let's just get it going. I know. And so I think the guys, they start to trust because they know that I know. I'm going to still hold them accountable. I'm going to still, it's just like, I think our counselor said, I'm going to yell and scream at you and just be like, man, you should have did this. But now, come here. Now let's get it done. I'm not going to yell and scream at you and kick you out the door. I'm going to yell. I'm going to say, you should have did it. You should have turned it on time. But now let's call the instructor to see if we can turn it in. Okay, coach. Because they know they're gonna get an earful. But at the same time, they know that I'm going to help them get out of it and get through it. And I think that's what we need to do as leaders. And that's just my opinion. Everybody has their approach, but I think that's what works. Everybody's asking me, well, how do you deal with this and deal with that? You got to go out and you got to seek helping them because it's not going to come to you. They should, and we should do it that way. But if you really want to make an impact, you're saying, I want to help those who are struggling. I want to help those who are in need. If not, then this is not your calling. Then your calling is to maybe be mega, make billions. And that's great. And then guess what? You make those billions and then just send us $1 million, So that's your calling. And that's a great help as well. You may don't have the patience or the gift. Your patience is in, let me grow my business. And then and I'm a philanthropist doing this, throwing money out. That's fine. But if you truly want to do this part, and everybody's saying, Mosley, how do you do? If you want to do this part, then it's not about me. It's not about my rules. Yeah. I have rules, but I'm teaching them how not to break rules in the future, or teaching them how to engage in better performance. We talk about winning. Winning is essential. I text that to the guys every day. You have to win that moment. So when you go stand in line at the bookstore and you got to wait in line in the first week because you got to get your book because you got to do homework that night, then you win and you have a good attitude and you stay in line and you don't try to cut and you don't try to act entitled. You win that. And then once you win that small victory, now you got this paper that you got to do. You win that. Or when somebody has an attitude with you and you didn't really do anything to deserve it, they stereotype you. You win that moment. Learn how to win have these little small victories and win those little small victories. I already know you know how to take care of it on the court, but take that same drive. The basketball side is easy. That's easy. Somebody rolls his eyes a little, okay, go get on the line. Okay, I'll fix that like that. It's no big deal. But can you take those same habits and then take them in life? And that's what we're trying to teach these guys, man, because the majority of beyond less than 1% is going to be on my team. They may, maybe a percentage, 10% may go overseas on my team. But in terms of NBA and all that, it's about getting your education and getting a career and getting a family and learning how to deal with adversity and getting through it. And so those are some of the life lessons that I just try to force on them,
Being a head coach program, especially when you guys don't have a massive budget. I mean, they talk about having the rims get fixed and all the things that you have to do, maintenance. I mean, doors break, lockers get punched.
Yeah.
Shit gets broken. So, and then you also got a bunch of dudes. Some of them come from pretty rough upbringings or abandoned upbringings, but they played basketball. There's a great story. Jay Moore's a friend of mine. Jay tells this great story that Pat Riley talks about when Anthony Mason and Charles Oakley were on his team.
Yeah.
And you got these two big alphas and they had to sort out who was going to be boss. And those guys physically fought for like 2 hours to sort that out. Right. And stuff that happens behind closed doors. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot for any of that stuff, but how do you sort out that alpha process, that struggle, that physical? I mean, these are dudes that have egos. I mean, I only finally kind of whipped my ego when I turned like 47 years old,
Yeah.
I mean, I was always trying to get into something, but how do you deal with that with these guys who that's the one thing they do know? I mean, you go out in the street and you play ball, you're calling your own. You might have to defend your own when you call it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I have never had a player that has walked through my door that has not wanted a scholarship, has not wanted playing time, has not wanted to be loved on, all the things that we have to offer. I have never met a player that walked through the door. So there's a carrot there. There's a carrot there. And how we package that carrot or how we embody it to have those guys chase it, I think that's the skill set that's most important. It's not the X's and O's and all that. Is how do we present this to the guys and make them chase this and make them fall in line so that they can attain this goal that they want, regardless if they act out. So now we got to share the message. You want to act out this way or do that? Well, let me tell you something. And I have all this equity behind me. I'm like, here's the carrot. Look at all the equity. Look at the guy that transferred. Look at this guy who was playing on the NCAA tournament. Look at this guy getting his degree. Look at this guy that's now a probation officer. Look at this guy that has a family. You see all this equity that we have built up? If you want this equity behind me shows you. It shows you all this stuff that we have, this carrot that's right here, all the equity behind me. And fortunate enough, I built up enough equity. We built enough equity up to say, hey, everybody who comes through has success. You can trust that if you fall in line to go get this carrot, if you fall in line, and that's the message the whole year. And guess what? You don't get it until you get all the way to the end. So that message, that alpha fight is going on all year long. And that if it wasn't, all teams in the country would be 30-0 if that wasn't going on. Part of the struggle is it's not, especially with the great teams, okay, with the most talented teams. They lose a couple games. It has nothing to do with the talent. It's you got inner battles with those trying to figure out what their role is, and so those battles go on and on. But if you can figure out how you can package that carrot right there, where those guys can focus on that carrot. How can I turn? So that's where I get trust from all of the leaders. So I got like 3 or 4 alphas that want to just take over. Okay, let me spend some time with this one, and share them. Hey, I care. I need you to get to this carrot. You want this carrot, right? Okay, how are we going to get there? Okay, the way we're going to get there is we got to get along. We got to manage. I need you to slide into this role. I need you to slide into that role. And the thing about it, the reason why I can talk to them a certain way is because I see me in them. I know the way he was acting, I know I was acting like that before, okay? What happened to him, if it didn't happen to me, it happened to my family member or somebody that I know that I'm directly related again. There's nothing that really hasn't happened to a young man that I haven't experienced or haven't had a direct connection with. So there's a sense of understanding, Deshaun loses his parents. I didn't lose my parents that early, but I understand death and I understand the loss. I understood what his mom meant to him. So having that relationship, being able to say, this is what you want, looking at the equity that's behind you. Okay, there's tons of equity showing you what's there. This is what you want. This is how we're going to get to what you want. Okay, we got to, and so just being able to manage those alphas that way and pointing them all in the same direction strategically by knowing what's going on in their lives. We can point them in that direction. We can all steer them in the same direction if we have the same common goal. I'll say it as kind of like my marriage counselor told me, we're at, my wife is on this end and I'm on one other end, and our relationship is going towards God. If I love God and she loves God, and we're so far apart, if she loves God and she's going towards God and I'm going towards God, eventually we're going to meet at the same point. And so ultimately that's how we see it with our players. Like, if your goal is this, then at some point we're all going to meet at the same point. And we just hope that it comes at the end of the year when it's time to play. If we're talking about basketball, ultimately we want to end at that point at the end of the year.
When I was in the Army in basic training, one of the things that they kind of slowly imparted on us that we finally started to get was that, like, and it's very similar to what you're doing, right? I mean, there's a lot of similarities in making a team out of something. So they'd say, like, Mosley, you didn't get your hat on right. Get down and start pushing. And so we'd all be in formation. And then you're like, well, shit, he's my battle buddy. Damn it. I better get on down with him. So then you're pushing next to Mosley, and Turner and Mosley are pushing. And then your squad leader's like, well, I'm their squad leader. Damn it. And then he gets down, and then the whole squad gets down, and the whole platoon gets down, and then they're finally like, get up, dirty dogs, But that's the thing. Like, if you're on the line, like if you send Joe to the line to go run, I'm going to go run next to him. He's on my team. He's my teammate. I'll let him down in some way. I'm with him 100%.
Yeah.
Do you like a thing that you guys impose? I mean, how do you guys deal with that? Because they must want to gel into some kind of unit like that where they want to suffer these things together because they own shared responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately we get to that point, and sometimes as a coach, you have to be the enemy to draw them together, And so like you were mentioning, your drill sergeants and just becoming the enemy to them and kind of like, man, coach is crazy. What's wrong with coach? And then all of a sudden they come together. It's like, man, let's do this so this man can get off of our backs. So ultimately, I think because when we come together as a team and I'm the coach, now we kind of shift. And I say, okay, fellas, now it's us against them. And they say, yeah, coach, let's go. And I think that's the mindset. And it's strategic, man. I think all those who are in leadership, if they can have the opportunity, I had an opportunity to be under some great leaders that showed me kind of that psychological aspect of it, or just some tips, or just having a good feel for those leadership qualities on how we can bring guys together. And now it's become a feel. Sometimes we're in a different space where okay, let me try to bang and tear these guys apart, so that let's see where they're at in their own little space. But then at the same time, let's say Mosley against all of these guys, and they're like, man, he's crazy. What's wrong with him? All right, fellas, man, let's just do it, man. It's just us against Coach Mosley. Coach Mosley crazy. And then they kind of band together that way. So it's just a feel, when you step in those spaces, being in those spaces, having the experience, working under good leadership, man. I think it's important to go under some mentorship where you're under great leadership. I had great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches that I worked for. It gave me the opportunity to see how they handled those situations. And I think sometimes you got to the coach himself has got to become the enemy so that they can come together and so that they can practice going against the enemy. And if I'm the enemy at that moment in practice, it's like, all right, we're going to go hard. We're going to show them. We're going to go hard. We're going to show them we can do it, And I'm like, okay, fine. Practice over. Great job. They're like, what? No, we don't like coach, And then ultimately when we come together, and now I take them out for that team meal. And now guess what? I'm on their side. So let's go play a game. I take them to the team meal, pregame meal. Thank you, coach. This is a great team meal. Yeah, okay, now we're all together. Let's go win a game.
I used to play a lot of pickleball when I was younger, and I'd play with, the guys from my team and everything. High school team was really good, state championship level kind of team. And I was a pretty good player. I knew my spot though, right? Like I passed the ball. I played defense hard. One of my favorite things to do was if you broke away and we're playing full court, I was going to chase you no matter what. And if you went up anyway halfway, if you half checked or anything, I was going to come in, and I would never try to hurt you, but I can't promise that I wouldn't hit you in the arm pretty hard trying to make you miss that dunk,
Yeah.
What that meant is every time someone broke away, they had to look back, and there was an advantage there. And it was just part of what I did to make myself valuable. And I ran. I had a big motor. I would run and run and run. So I would, I played better defense than I scored, and I could pass. And I was just relentless with that stuff. But there was always a spot for me on the court with really good guys because I didn't mind to throw the ball towards the rim, let them dunk or whatever it was. That kind of tenacity made me useful, even though I had no business being in the court. And I want to finish with this little thing with this hilarious story about my, my talent reaching its peak. So I'm out in California where I'm from, and I'm playing basketball in this old like cage style court. Right. And Brent Berry's down there and he's playing with us. And Brent Berry tosses some guy all the way out of the cage. We always dreamt of doing that, but Brent was special. He was coming down on a fast break. I'm backpedaling back and I play defense. This is what I do, And so I'm like, I'm going to stop Brent Berry right here. And he jumps to like shoot a jump shot. So I'm like, I got him. And I jumped up because I jumped after him and I got way up tall and everything. And I started coming down and he was still going up. And he flew by my face and then he dunked. He wasn't shooting a jumper. He was going to fly. And so I saw my talent go flying by my face when I saw his ankles going by.
Yeah.
But you deal with this with guys in your team, like teaching him like this is like, I think about Vinny Del Negro and how long of a career he had. He went to Europe. He played in the NBA forever. No one would ever pick that guy, but he did it somehow. So how do you teach these guys that like were the number one guy, but now they're the number 8 guy? How do you teach them to work? Because they're not alphas, but they're still incredibly powerful and can be
Yes.
like, I mean, I think about when they talk about LeBron being the GOAT. Well, go against Dennis Rodman and let me know how a series goes for you, because Dennis Rodman is going. If you're going to beat him, you're going to have to beat him. You know.
Yeah. Well, he's a GOAT in his own. Yeah, Dennis Rodman is a GOAT in his own right. You know, it's just he's just not scoring points, but he's a GOAT in his own right. So, no, you know what? And a couple guys are featured. Yeah, you have guys that score more points than others. And I share this story, and I'm very candid in saying I remember my college coach told me. Now they cut up the story, so I was like, oh, you didn't let me finish. You should have put that in there. But they said when I said the point, I remember my college coach told me, yeah, you're not good enough. And that just shocked me. I've never heard anybody tell me that. But after that, I shared the message that he told me what I needed to do to be good enough and where I stood. And I actually identified and I found a role in college. And I ended up, the end of my career starting and being a critical piece because I found that right piece and that right role. And the young men that were featured, they are no more special than everybody top to bottom. And the reason why all those guys stayed there to the end, it was we have 15 guys on the roster. Usually, a team ends with 13. We have 15 and they all stayed because they had a role and they understood it. And man, I'll tell you what, my heart is off to the guys who, and to me, they have more value to have a guy who could possibly play, understand a role, and take a lesser role and then still be a part of a team and still have the right attitude and the right mindset. And man, I tell you, that's a little bit harder than being the Joe Hampton, being the guy who has the ball all the time, or Deshaun Hyler or KJ. That is a harder role when you were the guy and then you have to come in. And to me, those are the guys, when they come to me, I'm typing fast a reference letter. Oh man, I got you. Reference letter, what do you want? What job is it? I'll call Bill Gates. I'll call him for you because I know the character that you have for you to go what you went through, for you to come and show up every day, 6 days a week, take a beating, and then to be a point. I got a player, and what he said and it really just was like, man, I really appreciate anything Mark Bolin wants. He's the one kid we had on our team, the white kid we had on our team. He says, you can't get those moments back. He won a high school championship. He was on the starting team. He had a couple guys go to Division I's. He comes to us, and his minutes got slim. Slim to none. And he says that, but for me, anything he needs, even more so, because sometimes the guys that are going to these, they getting these big scholarship and they scoring all the buckets, those are the guys that, they're kind of living out. They're getting their fair share. But the guys who are sitting deep on the bench, not getting many minutes, making all these sacrifices, and they don't get the minutes, those guys still haven't gotten it. But you know what? For me, what that did for me is it built a level of I wasn't satisfied. I still needed more. And I think that's where it brings me to this space right here. So I was at a point where, I got some minutes cut. I ended up starting. I kind of never was kind of satisfied in terms of competition. I didn't get to fulfill it. And then it brought me to a place where, hey, I'm in a career now where I'm competing. I'm still a part of a team because I still, I didn't get a chance to score 40 points in a row. I might say, hey, I'm done with basketball. I'm satisfied. But I think it gave me a space where there's a sense of there's still more to accomplish. And I think there's lessons to be learned in guys that those guys turn out phenomenally. And I don't want to say they turn out better, but guys who go through that and are willing to sacrifice even their just, it is humbling to sit there and you were a star and to do that and to just be a guy that still comes and works hard every day and understand that role. Man, my hat's off to them more than the guys that were even featured. And so those guys have a special place in my heart because I know how that feels to be playing and starting at the highest level and to also be sitting at the highest level. I know what that feels. It's embarrassing what it can do to you and what it can do to your ego. And for you to do that, you know what type of individual you have to be, how much stronger you have to be, to be able to do that. It takes a special person who can make the last shot and but man, it takes a special person to make that sacrifice. And those 15 guys, all of them have a special place. So they have been equally taken care of, and those guys will let you know. Those guys mean more to me than anything, than even the guys that are scoring the points, it's easy to get those scholarships. When I talk to my coaching staff, we have those meetings. I say, I'm not worried about Joe Hampton and his scholarship or KJ. I'm worried about the lad Mark Boland, the guys who didn't get the minutes, who made the sacrifices. And so that's why I think the success rate we have in all our guys move on and transfer. We have a lot of guys going to college because I'm not concerned about the guy scoring 20. I'm concerned about that guy because I made a promise to him that if you commit, we're still going to get you moved on and get you an education. I don't want to just see one guy, okay, I know he's Division I, he scored all the points, and he's been just like a favorite the whole time. You got a scholarship, hey, and I'm watching him on TV, and I leave the other guys behind. No, they made the same commitment that he made, if not more. So they're equally important, and I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, nobody brought that up in any of my interviews. Glad you brought that up because, it's to me, that's where my heart is, even more so. Because now, I got to spend more time with Joe Hampton because he's got a lot going on. But that guy who made the commitment, who did not bring any baggage, he didn't get any playing time. He didn't bring baggage. He showed up. He helped us practice and compete. He helped our team atmosphere. That's the guy I have to get a scholarship. Joe Hampton got his. He got his buckets. He got he got the shine. He got all conference honors. The guy that sat there and who showed up every day, that's the guy who needs a scholarship. And in our coaches' meetings, that's the first conversation. When we talk about getting guys, I don't care about how am I going to get this guy out that only played 5 minutes a game.
Yeah. When you think about someone, we'll use Mark as the example, someone like that. Or I think about Steve Tasker, who wasn't ever the best football player on his team, but he was relentless and he catches Leon Lett and he makes something that was going to be a touchdown, not a touchdown, because he just never gave up. And so when you put someone like Mark on the court as a coach, you're making a statement to your team. You can point to him and say all the time, he comes in and he just burns the intensity, because that's what you have to do. If you're a 5 minute or 2 minute a game guy, you've got to play within yourself, but there is no standing around. There is no pouting. There is just hard play. That's got to be a powerful tool for you as a coach in the game and also in the locker room, I would think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those tools, they probably mean more than the guy who can score the bucket, the guys who are coming and giving that energy. And those guys are forever. What's crazy is those are some of the guys that I usually stay in more contact with or I have the better relationships as we move forward because I'm so trying to make sure that those guys turn out okay. It's like the guys who were kind of getting the shine and all that. It's like, okay, you've gotten enough. Let me make sure these guys are getting through and they're getting opportunities at careers. I mean, I had a friend of mine that I work for. He's a part owner of a software company. Okay. And so he said, oh, Mosley, I see you're on this show. I sent 2 guys. He said, hey, man, if you ever got any guys that have they graduate, they need entry-level positions. I said, man, I got two guys, and I sent him right away because those are guys that I know that can handle any environment. They graduated with their bachelor's degrees in business. I sent them those guys right away. And those guys I'm in constant contact with. I want to make sure those guys are okay for the sacrifices that they made. But you can't have a team if you don't have guys like that and committed. So for me, psychologically, for them to be able to handle those moments, those to me are the toughest guys. I know Jay Billis had a book that I read, and we talk about toughness. Toughness, that's toughness. Toughness is just not just going and dunking on something. Toughness is the guy who can sit there and watch another guy pout, but he knows, talent-wise, that's probably the best situation. Watch him pout and not appreciate his opportunity as much, but still be able to come and appreciate the role that he has and come through. And those guys, I'm forever indebted to. I'm forever indebted to those guys, for like my career as well. I'm forever grateful. And those guys know that. I've mentioned it to them and share that with them several times that I'm forever grateful. It's not just about the guys that are scoring the buckets or the starters, but each and every one of them. And I tell them, I say, look, man, even if you don't have them, I've had guys that played 10 minutes a game and they're starting at Division I's now, So I'm forever grateful for those guys. But those guys are, if not, the most important guys on the team to be able to have those. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, you said earlier, talking about writing letters of recommendation. And this is an important thing that I don't think people talk about nearly enough. And then you went right. And this is how I learned too. I learned from a good leader. They said you always go to character because nothing is more important than someone who's reading a recommendation. And so I
Mhm.
love to write recommendations. So when I was in the Army and when I was working, every now and then someone would ask me, not always because I wasn't ever a commander or anything, but I had this young Iraqi kid that I met up with. He was an interpreter, and I was out every day talking to folks, and I always knew he had the skinny on what was going on, and so I respected him. He's a young kid, though, but I knew he had bright things in front of him. So he comes to America, goes and gets himself educated, and about, I don't know, 3 months ago or so, he said, "Hey, Pete, I'm going to try to become a doctor." This is a kid that's not even an American citizen yet, right?
Yeah.
Gone to school. He's like, "I want to become a doctor." From Iraq, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, what do you need?" He's like, "Can you write me a letter of recommendation?" And I said, "Absolutely, absolutely." And I poured it on hard.
Yeah.
And then I sent it to him
Mhm.
and to the address that he wanted because I want him to read it and be like, "Oh
Yes.
my God, this guy thinks this about me." And that's all he could do because we don't ever have enough opportunities to do that for someone to say, "This guy is special. He is relentless."
Yeah.
And one of the
Yeah.
things I can say, and I think you have a similar thing you can do. I can say, I trust this person with my life because I have. I've been in combat
Yes.
with them, and you can trust them to give you
Yes.
everything they've got. You've got similar things, but that's how I write a letter of recommendation. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know it's interesting. I tell the guys, I say, look, man, you're not gonna get much sugar from me until you leave, because I'm telling stories about you. I tell the new guys that walk through the door, like, look, man, let me tell you what Mark Boland did. He was a starter in high school. He was 6'5". Hey, look, man, let me tell you about this guy or that guy. So I'm sharing with the guys, and the guys will come back. It's like, man, coach, you really thought about that of me? And I'm like, yeah. So the sugar, you get the sugar when you walk out the door because we don't want you to soften up while you're here. But ultimately, almost everybody is asking for a letter of recommendation, and they see it, when they're doing their college applications to get into the universities that they're going through. But if you went to battle, just as you said, if you went to battle and went through what we're doing, and you know what, you couldn't see all the execution for the story's sake, for the filming, it was broken up. You couldn't see the discipline, you couldn't see the structure as much because of how they had to build the story, you know. But there was a lot there that forces guys to kind of lock in. And when you go to battle with, you saw they had your back. Like you had my back by not having an attitude when I needed you to perform or do this. And so absolutely, almost 100% of the guys who are in our program, I would do anything above and beyond to place them in the reasonable positions that I think they should be in. If a guy, I feel like he's got the ability to be at the corporate level. I'm gonna say, look, he needs to be the CEO again. If a guy has the ability to run all the guys, I feel they have the ability to be these leaders. If it's a construction company, if it's this, whatever it is. I had a guy call me and ask me about Deshaun. I said, absolutely. The guy, Deshaun, right now is trying to sell stocks. And he asked me about what time would he survive in corporate. Heck yeah, he would. That dude all day long would survive in it. And so, I'm a big advocate. If you went through the war, if you went through the fire with us, man, I'm going to help you in any way I can.
You can't help but appreciate the parallels between you and Jerry Tarkanian's legacy. As someone that came up and said, "Give me these JUCO kids," and I really want to advocate for anybody who does any kind of community college or considers it. You don't have to go to a 4-year. Don't spend your parents' money. Don't go spend $50,000 trying to figure out what you want to be because most kids don't. And Jerry would go out and go, "These guys are tested. They've been through a good program. I'm going to go win championships or at least compete at the Final Four over and over and over again with that guy." It's incredible that he did that. And I don't want to say he didn't care, but he relished the opportunity to take on someone like a Lloyd Daniels or really, really challenging guys who needed an opportunity. He's you had to have been inspired by how he did that, at least to learn something from him. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I'll just tell you, I wanted to go to UNLV. That was my school. I had all the gear. UNLV was my spot. I think coming through high school, I was like, I want to go to UNLV just because of it was a raw representation, but they were playing at such a high level, but it was a raw representation, a true raw representation of college basketball. It was guys that they weren't putting on this college front. It was like, hey, we're ballers. We're from the from these different diverse areas, and and we can still have success too. And so to have success with all those group of guys, man, and I think that endeared guys like myself that came from the inner city. So I wanted to play for Jerry Tarkanian back in the day. But yeah, man, I get that same sense. I came from the city. I see myself in all these guys, and I see them, a lot of these guys being turned away and say, hey, I can't deal with these guys. Now, not to say that I don't say that sometimes. I may say that, but if that kid has a heart and I'm looking like I can't deal with that, but if he's got a heart to change, then the door's open. I'm like, come on, man, I got you. Let's go. And there's some guys that do come and they see how we run things and they don't want to do it. So they leave. But the guys who have these situations, they leave in the sense that as soon as they walk through the door and they look around, this is too much for me, and they leave. So I'm not saying everybody that walks through the door is like, oh, I'm here to stay. No, there's some that walk through the door and they say, this is too much for me, and they leave. But once those guys are there a couple of weeks and they look around and they say, no, I'm committed to this, from that point on, I'm not letting you go. You're not going nowhere. Okay? You're not going to fail. From that point on, you won't fail. Once you say, Coach, I'm going to make a commitment. Once I hear that, I'm making a commitment. Okay, perfect. You're not failing. But the guys that walk through the door, they come and they look around and see if they want to be a part of it, and they say it's not for me. It's not, But those guys who want to be a part of it, I got you, and I'm going to make sure. And let me share with you what we've done for others that have been in the exact same situation that you've been in. We're going to help you move on. As long as you follow these steps and you follow the template, you'll be fine. And by the way, I'm going to love on you too, man, and I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to press my faith on you, but I'm going to let you know, man, if you need that, I got that for you as well. I'm going to pray for you.
Yeah, I want to get into the faith part of this, and we're going to run out of time if I keep talking too much. But the other thing that you have to deal with is some players, especially in junior college, their desire, their talent, these things run out at some point. And that is like, maybe they never got the most out of their game. So how do you someone like about Malik Muhammad's game, because he's incredible. I mean, he's a fantastic ball player, but there's a lion in there, and he's trying to find that lion. So how do you determine when there's someone like Malik where you're like, I know you're the biggest guy in the gym. You kept saying that, trying to convince him. You say everything 3 times because these guys are dummies. We're all dummies. We're that young. You got to convince them. But then the other guy who's like, it's the talent isn't there or the desire isn't there. How do you do the right thing and go, this isn't what we're doing here isn't for you. You should go. I mean, you cut players for sure. Some players self-select out, but that is a process.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is a process. I try to be completely honest, and I think that resonates with the players. They see my honesty. I'll let them know, like, hey, you're good enough. And to me, almost everybody that walks through the space in the gym is good enough. But the problem is that you may have 1 or 2 guys that are, they're just a little bit better right now. They're a little bit more advanced, and it may be tough for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish in this space. So maybe try another opportunity. And so I'm completely honest, because I would love to save the world, but there's only 15 spots on the roster. So I do have to have that conversation. That's a tough conversation, because I've sat in those conversations and had to relay those messages. And also I'll sit on the other side where, like I said, Bill Oates, who's my mentor, he ended up being my mentor because he was the first person that was honest with me and said, you're not good enough.
Right.
And I had to sit back and say, well, what do you mean? What do I need to do? And then he told me what I needed to do. I wasn't, and I realized I wasn't good enough as the player that I thought I should be. But I was good enough as the player that he thought I should be. So he said, okay, you need to do these things and then you're good enough. And so I started to do, simple stuff. I wrote them down. I still have them, and I have them written and slipped in my Bible. Like one of them was, you're not a good post entry. You don't know how to feed the post well. And I'm like, what? But I can cross this guy over and shoot the step back 3. He's like, well, you don't know how to pass to the post. I'm thinking like, what is he talking about? Or you don't get us in our offense quick enough. I'm like, what? That's what you're talking. So once I did those things, I realized that I was good inside of that space versus I'm thinking I'm good because I can cross somebody over and I can drill the ball 900 hours. Nobody can steal the ball from me. What are you talking about? Well, you know what? It doesn't help us that you can dribble the ball for 900 hours. What helps us is if you can get us into our offense, and now you're good. Now you're good. So I wasn't good at in terms of what, I wasn't good enough to dribble the ball for 900 hours, even though I knew I could dribble for 900 hours. I wasn't good enough to do it for that team. So he said that I wasn't good enough. And so you have to share that honesty. And so just being honest and then letting them know the good part about it is I went through it, not being at some points, not being good enough and figure out where do I fit and being told where I fit. And you know what? I did it. And then I became good enough. And then I went and played a little bit after the missions trip in Brazil and then in Australia. So I ended up being good enough. And so I think that's what led into the coaching. I said, you know what? I know what those guys are going through, all the way from the guys who have been good and the guys who are not. I can tell those guys, like, look, if you want to be good, we got to be honest. Okay. You're not Kyrie Irving. We got to be honest. Okay. You're more of this type of a guard. And this is the space that you need to go to. And then you're going to be good enough. Now I can get you a scholarship playing like this. I can't get you a scholarship playing like Kyrie Irving because you're not good enough as a Kyrie Irving type guard. But I can get you the scholarship playing like this, or even for a big who wants to step out there and play on the perimeter. Like, look, you're not good enough. And he said, what? Yeah, you're not good enough as the way you're trying to play. You're trying to be Kevin Durant. You're not good enough at 6'8". Okay? You're good enough if you get down there and you duck in there and you dunk every time. Now you're good enough, I can get you a Division I scholarship. And so those are the things, those are the messages, being honest and not feeling intimidated by talking to a player. Say, no. I'm not afraid to tell a big man that, no, I think sometimes we apologize and say, because of this culture now, everybody wants to shoot threes. Okay, we're going to help you shoot threes as a big man. No, you have to go down there and duck in and bury somebody in order to get you a scholarship. You can shoot some threes. That's fine. Okay, so I think the honesty is where we have to be, and I've been able to do that, and because someone was honest with me, and so I think that helped me to be honest with others.
Coach, I got to admit, one time I was playing rec league ball, and I'm pretty good at passing the ball. I have to put some spin on it and everything and get it to where it goes. So my friend is running baseline, and I wind up at about half court, and I huck it like Magic would, like Magic showed me, and I throw a nice bounce pass with some good spin to pop him out to get a three. Well, he went in to do a layup, and I threw the ball all the way out of the gym and out to the library across the street.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's hilarious. I'm like, damn, I missed that one by a lot. Anyhow, I wanted to ask you one more question. This is the question I ask a lot in the right kind of guests come on, but we have a lot of problem with race in this country, and it's really tough to sort out. And I'm a big believer that if you apply yourself, my buddy Brock, who is going to go become a doctor, he was an Iraqi refugee, essentially. What does the Black community owe itself? I mean, you have these kids that play basketball, but what about the kid who is the seventh guy deep on the basketball team, or the kid that just doesn't have it? What does the Black community owe itself to rise up and to empower themselves? Because so many of these things, this if you don't have a Coach Mosley, if you're most kids, how do they do it? What do they need to do?
Yeah, well, first, I think some of our leaders need to go and understand the spaces that some of these young men are in. So if we look at, some of the young men that I'll deal with coming from their home life and their home situation, a lot of time, they're 17, 18, and we kind of maybe put the blame on them. Well, look, they screwed up. They screwed up their opportunity. Well, you know what? When starting at 4 or 5 years old, maybe they were on to the babysitter. Maybe mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs. They had all these circumstances in their lives where they never had a solid foundation. So for me, I think it starts with family, so it starts with our leadership. It starts with family, building our families. I can't, there is a level of responsibility because they're adults, but when you look at the foundation that was set for them, that part is unfair. When they're 5 years old and there are some things that they see, that's their foundation. So there is a level of responsibility when they get older, and there are people that they don't even know how to respond to love because they weren't loved at 5 and 6 and 7 and 10. So now at 10 years old, when someone comes to love them, they don't know how to respond to it. So that's what we're dealing with in the community. Okay. So it's hard for me to put all of that on them. And that's where I come with the level of compassion for a Joe Hampton in his response. They say, that kid has an opportunity with Coach Mosley. Why is he acting like that? Well, what happened when he was 5 years old or even 4 years old when there was some impression on him? What happened? So that they can't even receive the opportunities. Yeah. They reject the opportunities. You say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, if you live that life and you know that you have this shell and you don't know how to accept love. So for me, I'm asking our leaders, I'm asking the ones that have been there to go back. And we talked about it earlier. Instead of saying, let's sit back and say, look what we have for you. Look at the opportunity. No, I talked about it. We got to grab them and push them through those window of opportunities. And we need guys to go back and mentors, the CEOs to go grab people. And because they responded the wrong way, doesn't mean we say, well, I gave them an opportunity, I'm quitting on them. No, we have to force them through. And then when they get through and they see the sunshine, they're like, wow, is this what it was about? Okay, now I can change because I see it. But sometimes not until they get on the other side do they see it. I didn't see it until I got into a world where I'm in a conservative environment and I'm like, wow, this is how the other side lives. You know what? I want this, But if you're still sitting at home in the hood and somebody says, hey, here's your opportunity. Come on. It's like, man, I'm not going. I don't trust you. But once you get through that window and you look around, whoa, okay, now I want this. Okay, now I don't want to lose it. And so for me, that's what I'm doing. None of these guys know what's on the other side. And so that's the mess. I'm sitting up here, I'm screaming to them. I'm like, dude, we got to get you out of here. But guess what? While I'm screaming, it's going through one ear and out the other. And I know that because they don't see it. But you know what? When they get there, they're like, Coach, man, my life has changed. Because now the resources have changed. Now they're on a college campus where everybody earned the right to be on the college campus. They earned it because they had a level of discipline. Everybody on a college campus has a level of discipline they earned the right to be there, whether it's through athletics, academics, whether it's through even a family who was able to just pay, but they earned the right to be there. So when they get around those people, now they're like, okay, now I'm on this side. I'm with the privileged, not the privileged in the sense that a parent paid, but I'm with the privileged because we all made a sacrifice to get to college. And then when we get there, so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. It's up to me to go grab him and push him through. Okay? That's my calling. That's my calling if I want to help the young man who's in the gutter. Don't say you want to help the man that's in the gutter, the young man that's in the gutter, and then just stand back and say, well, come and get it. No, that's not working that way. So the level of responsibility falls on our leadership to go and grab them. It's going to be hard for them to come out of it. And you know what? There are some that do come out of it. There are some that just has it in them. God just puts it in them and they come out of it anyway. But if you're saying, why is that one not working out? But there's two young men that can both be in the gutter. One can come out and one cannot. Well, why don't you be more like this young man? Well, let me share with you why this one is not. Okay. One can go through he can go through abuse. He can go through everything. And you know what? He can go to Cornell. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Because that window that he saw, he said, I'm going to just go through it. Well, why doesn't this young man? Well, you know what? That abuse affected him differently. The abuse did not motivate him. The abuse harmed him. What he saw, it affected him. So he needs somebody to grab him and take him. And so that's what I would say. I would call our leaders, I would call mentors to go and get these young men or go get those people in poverty. And it's not just African-American young men. It's all races. If you see anybody struggling, if you see someone who's struggling with drug addiction or anything, it could be any race, you go and get them. And you see them through, you force them through the window and get them to the other side and let them see the other side. And if you only got the energy to do one, just do one. But just do one if that's all you got.
Yeah. One of the things I've realized dealing with veteran suicide, and I've been, in that spot myself, is that you can't expect someone to reach out for help because they're hanging on for dear life. They need both hands on that rope. And we got to do more if we want to help them. And the ones that are easier to help, then God bless. Help those easy ones, yank them out and get them going. But it's those other ones that need extra help. Do you have time for one more question?
Sure. What?
Okay. look, you've made a lot of changes, and I want to say this to you too, because I've seen the you in the future. I've talked to a bunch of Jerry Tarkanian's players years and years, decades after they played with them, and they all, to a man, are like, everything I have, I owe it to Jerry. I owe it to him for giving me the opportunity, put me in the system. And, these guys live in Vegas and they thrive afterwards. That's what's coming for you in the future. What have you picked up? I mean, you must grow constantly as you do this, and because you don't just have a hammer, you have a whole tool belt full of tools, and you learn how to use them more effectively and design new tools. What have you picked up the last, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to go too far back, but the last few years, you've become an even better coach. I know you haven't peaked yet. So
yeah.
How are you?
Are we talking about coaching, or are we just talking about just slot? Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, as a coach, man, I just think that less is more. Less is more, man. All the things that I've learned, and I don't know if you know the background, but Bill Oates was my mentor. He passed almost a year ago. But he coached with Athletes in Action and when they represented the United States in the World Games. And at the time, John Wooden had just retired. John Wooden was the color commentator for Athletes in Action in the 70s. And so the United States was represented by Athletes in Action then. So the relationship that he has, and in all of this stuff that I picked up, I got all of this information that I try to put out there, and I have to realize that less is more sometimes. And so sometimes you have to let these players have the freedom to do, express themselves. And that's something, because believe it or not, like I said, the structural aspect, basketball wise, I'm like, man, it doesn't look like we execute. It doesn't look like we play defense because of the dramatic part. It's like, it just shows us turning it over because it has to show where we got it, the emotional roller coaster. Oh, it shows we get beat off the dribble. I'm like, we don't get beat, but 2 or 3 times a game. But those are the ones that showed up on the film. So, less is more, man. And I realize that I here's the thing, and I share this with all those who are dealing with young people. When I started coaching, I was in my early 20s. This is big. Started coaching early 20s. Guess what? I'm closer to their age. I understand. But guess what? The next year I get more mature, and I'm more mature. I am more mature. But guess what? That same guy that walks through my door is still the same, kid that is not responsible, but I'm getting mature. We have to stay tolerant. And we have to remember that moment, that same kid is going to walk through the door. And just because I'm mature, there's not going to be a more mature kid that walks through the door. And I share with all these groups and our faculty. Our faculty, think about it, the energy, the endurance, the excitement you have when you first faculty, you got all these tricks and you're mentoring kids. But as you get older, you get in your 40s and 50s, and all of a sudden you're less tolerable and you don't tolerate, he didn't turn it in. Nope, I'm not accepting a late. And me, I'm still like, man, hey, I want you to be successful. Just turn it in. I'm going to take a couple points off, So I think we have to remember that as we get older, and I'm more mature, I got to still keep that young vibe. And that's what I try to do as well. I don't try to fake it. I try to be authentic, but I got to remember that they're still 17 and 18. And the older I get, there's more of a separation. The older I get, more of a and I'm so mature now. I'm this great mature guy, and I know that's wrong, but I still got to remember that same kid is going to go into, he's going to want to like girls, he's social media, and now there's things that that I didn't have to deal with that they have to deal with. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned is as I become more mature, that same kid is still at that same 17-year-old kid walks through the door.